Hello everyone, welcome back to card 6 in my Christmas card series. This one is for those of you who are not keen on the typical Christmas images. I made a card with a watercolor winter forest. This is a very simple card idea and all you need to make it are watercolor supplies. The idea for this card is to paint only the top half of the card and leave the bottom part white. I started with the background and I painted the first layer. I did here the wet on wet technique, so I used a clean water and I applied it over the top half of the cardstock. And to prevent the cardstock from warping, I taped it to a board using a washi tape. Next, I used a dark blue paint and I applied it across the wet background. I was creating a gradient, decreasing the intensity of the color towards the bottom. You could see the lines of my paintbrush. I'm using a cheap watercolor cardstock. I bought it in the store Flying Tiger and I picked it because it's bright white. If you prefer a smoother look, I think for that the cotton cardstock is better. However, I wasn't going for a smoother look, so it did not really matter. To make the sky a little bit more interesting, I also used this pink purple paint and I dropped it here and there. First I thought I will blend it with the blue, but then I changed my mind and I just dropped the color in and let it combine with the blue by itself. I let the panel air dry and then I started with the second layer. Here I did the wet on dry technique and I also used another blue paint. This is the indigo blue from the Gonzai Tambi palette from Koretake. I would have used it for the whole background, but since I'm slowly running out, I added another blue. And for the second layer, I used both blues as well as the purple, and I applied the paint in a dabbing motion. This is to create a cloud-like texture. You could definitely do a smooth application. I just like this look. And again, I was decreasing the intensity of the color towards the bottom. This is mainly to make sure after I paint the trees, they will be visible. After I was happy with the look of the sky, I used a heat gun to dry the background. If you want, you could also let it air dry. After the panel was dry, I realized that I wanted to paint some light trees in the background. It would be better to do that while the paper is wet, so you can create these misty trees. But since I forgot, I just used a lighter wash of the paint and I painted a few trees in the background. I painted them slightly bigger because in the past, when I did this, I painted them the same height as the trees in front and you could not see them at all. The darker trees covered them completely. And if you want, you could also skip this step and paint the darker trees right away. For the trees in front, I used the indigo blue and a little bit of black as well. And because I wanted the color to be very saturated, I added very little water. To paint the tree, I started with small line at the top and then in a zigzag motion, I painted the branches. As I was making the strokes, I was creating wobbly, little bit wavy lines. And I painted 6 of the trees in different sizes. How many you paint, that is completely up to you. I painted all the trees the same way, so I sped up the video a bit so you can see the whole painting process. You could leave it as it is, but I wanted to create more blended look for the bottom below the trees and also separation between the sky and the ground. I used a clean water and I applied it below the trees. My trees were mostly dry and the color didn't combine with the water as I wanted, so I used a little bit of the blue paint and I added it below the trees. If you have a pool of water like me here, just dry your brush and soak up the color. I also used a clean wet brush and blended the color into white across the whole bottom part of the paper. Since this is a winter forest scene, I wanted to add some snow. I covered the bottom part of the watercolor panel with a paper towel. This is just because I didn't want to have any paint over that part. I used a white gouache and I splattered the paint across the background. This is a dried gouache that I keep on reusing because I squeezed too much. Otherwise, I would just squeeze a fresh paint from the tube. To create the splatter, I dipped a damp brush into the paint, which I mixed with a little bit of water, and using my finger, I tapped onto the brush to create those droplets. The size of the splatter, at least from what I noticed, depends on the size of the brush, and I would also say how wet the paint and the brush are, and also how hard you tap on the brush. I let the panel fully dry, and then I decided to die cut the panel using a stitched rectangular die. You can skip this step and just adhere it onto the card base or do something completely different. I ran the panel through my die cutting machine and die cut the panel. This removed the border that was created by the washi. For the sentiment, I used a stamp that says warmest wishes. I wanted a greeting to be on a smaller side, so I went through my stash and I found this stamp, and I think it fits the card perfectly. If you don't have stamps, you can write it yourself. I just prefer to use stamps. Lastly, I adhered the panel on top of a white card base. I used a liquid glue to adhere it. If you don't have card bases, you could fold the watercolor cardstock in half. And the card is done! Here you can see it in a close-up. I hope you will give it a try because it's very quick and simple to make. I actually made a few of these cards. And if you would like to see more Christmas card ideas, check out my videos from previous years. The links to these videos will be in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.